Hello, everyone. While we're waiting to resolve technical difficulties, if you could take the time to review the minutes for when we end up approving them. You know, while we're waiting, I could also go ahead and take roll. How about that? Hold on.
Yeah, it looks Robert, like the recording and transcriptions going, so it's just a matter of getting the handout up. So we can probably
Okay.
get started.
Give me a second. Dang it. Oh. All right, let me go ahead and check roll real quick. I can't see everybody on the screen at the same time the way it is right now. So I see that, Tom, are you here?
Here.
Bob Stewart, I see is here. Susan Ricky Smith? Not yet. I saw Susan Miller. Bill?
Here.
Enrique? Guess we're missing Enrique. Michelle?
Here.
Great. Jeff?
Here.
All right. JJ, I see, and I see myself as well. So just so far, Susan, Enrique, and Enrique. So we'll go ahead and start. I'm going to call this meeting to order, our last one of the year. Very exciting. And if you could review the minutes, and I'll entertain motions to approve or questions or comments.
Motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All right, we had a tie. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as written signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any nays? All right, the ayes have that. All right, so we're going to get to one other piece of action that we have to do today, and that's reaffirmation or election of board officers. What I'd like to do is I want to read you just a piece of the bylaw, because it's possible we don't have to go through the entire election process. So the bylaws, section 1A, election of officers, and I'll just read this, it's just one paragraph. The board will elect one of its members as chair and another member as vice chair. The board will elect or reaffirm the chair and vice chair each year at its July board meeting unless alternative timing is agreed to by the chair and the vice chair, but no later than the month of August. Terms of the office will be structured such that after serving as vice chair, the vice chair will move into the office of the chair. So the bylaws allow for an affirmation. We don't have a July board meeting. I agree to making it the June meeting. JJ, do you as well?
Yes.
All right. So all we need actually is an affirmation by a simple yay or nay vote. So unless you want to be chair or vice chair, here's your chance to have somebody else do it. So all those in favor, Ali, do I need to do these separately, or can we just put JJ and I just on one vote?
You can just do one vote.
All right. All those in favor of keeping me as chair and JJ as vice chair for the 22-23 season signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed? All right. Congratulations, JJ. and we're ready to move on. All right, so Ali, I'm going to let you take this one. We're going to start off with a Mercer team meet and greet, as the agenda says.
Yes, thank you very much. Super excited to introduce everyone to our new consultant actuary team from Mercer. We know that they have some big shoes to fill, but I couldn't be happier with the construct of this team. They bring OEBB-specific experience and many, many years of industry-leading experience, so we feel very fortunate. We have an extremely large budget of nearly $1 billion a year, and we really feel like this team will help us support the board and staff to be the most efficient stewards of these funds and really make the most informed decisions for our members, which is most important. Staff over the summer will meet with Mercer and board leadership and develop a fall work plan and really start preparing for the next renewal, which could likely include a retreat later in late fall. But with that, I'd like to hand it over to Todd Francisco, our lead consultant, and Kirsten Staveland, our lead actuary, to kick this off and introduce themselves and take any questions.
Sure thing. Thanks, Ollie.
Yep.
Hi there, I'm Todd Francisco. I'm happy to be here. Great to meet you all. I thought I'd just take a quick moment or so to quickly give you guys an overview of my background, and then we'll also let Kirsten and Sally from the team chat as well. So again, Todd Francisco, I've got more than 20 years experience around employer healthcare, both on the consulting and the provider sides of the business. Started my career with a short stint straight out of college on the retirement consulting side, but quickly moved over to the healthcare side after that, joining the Watson Wyatt team here in the Seattle office. In fact, I worked with the Watson Wyatt team back at the time that the OEBB business was initially won. I know Steve Carlson and others that were involved back then, and Steve was my boss at the time. In my role there, I had the chance to work with many Pacific Northwest employers, kind of at that time when consumer-driven healthcare plans were starting to roll out, which was pretty interesting because I think we were at the forefront of that strategy at the time. And also at that time, I developed an interest and emphasis in healthcare data and how it can be used to enable and inform more strategic and effective consulting. So that being said, that interest generally led me to my next role, which was at Optum. Part of United Healthcare. It was their healthcare data analytics arm. So in that role, it was an account management, account executive sort of position, working with major employers and also a couple of large industry groups using data to underpin their strategies. That in turn led me to a role that gave me a chance to take that healthcare data analytics experience to another level, working on a healthcare exchange. So I joined Buck back in 2013 as they were developing and getting ready to roll out their employer healthcare exchange. So their healthcare exchange was a bundled solution that included both an innovative approach to network structure, but also bundled point solutions, et cetera. So among many hats, I led their data analytics strategy. We built a database that would cover all of the exchange clients across a large array of data types. So this allowed us to be really strategic at the client level, but it also let us look at a really large database at the aggregate level and being able to use that data to impact the overall strategy and direction that the exchange was going. So that leads me up to Mercer. I've been here just over a year. I joined in the Seattle office as a lead consultant and ended up through some conversations late in 2021, stepping into the Seattle office business leader role here in January. So in this role, I really focus on building and retaining our consulting team in the Northwest, championing Mercer consultants and our reputation in the Northwest, as well as our market presence, growing our client base, and of course, leading several of our top Northwest clients. So I'm really happy to be here. Look forward to working with you all, and nice to meet you. Kirsten?
Great. Thanks so much, Todd. Hi, everyone. So I'm Kirsten Stavelin. I tell people Kirsten as an ear or beer, but I will not hold it against you if you the hardest name of all names. So I am also, of course, super happy to be here and actually know you and know OEB, although you probably don't know it because it was mostly behind the scenes. But prior to coming to Mercer in August, I actually spent 10 years at MODA, where I worked on OEB and PEB. And of course, at MODA, Erica Hedberg is mostly client facing. And so you work closely with Erica. She's fantastic and knows OEB inside and out, PEB as well. And I was on the actuarial team leading the financial effort supporting Erica in her role. So I got to know OEB, was there for the implementation of the ACT. So it was so interesting this morning to be part of that discussion with CIAO and the ACT, both the benefit and how it got put in place and the evolution of OEB's benefit portfolio, and even how we are here today asking ourselves, given the evolution of OEB's benefits and all of these other programs that we have in place, has the ACT run its course? Just being able to have that conversation with you is one of the reasons I love working on OEB so much. It's one of the most innovative groups in the state, and it's really rewarding to be able to help you provide leading edge care to all of your teachers. So thank you so much for having us on the account, and I look forward to meeting you in person someday, hopefully this fall. Sally?
Oh, thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I can't see everybody necessarily, but I'm really happy to be here as well. My name is Sally Hill. I have been with Mercer for a little over a year. I started a year ago, March, but it's not my first rodeo. I was with Mercer earlier. Jeff knows that. Jeff was my boss at Mercer, actually. And I spent 5 years at Mercer, and then I left and I went to work for Providence, and I managed a self-funded book of business, which included PEB. So I was the person who was involved in the implementation of both the PEB choice plan and the PEB statewide plan while I was there. And then after that, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of experience on both working in consulting, but also working on the carrier side. So I have a pretty broad and kind of diverse background in understanding kind of all sides of the picture when you're working with health and welfare benefits. And included in that was a short stint working for Peace Health on their HR benefits team. So anyway, I'm happy to meet all of you. I'm looking forward to working with you, and I think I'll stop there.
Thanks, Sally. I think we have one other member of the Mercer team on the phone today, and that's Maggie Kincaid. Wanted to give her a chance to introduce herself as well.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's so great to meet you all. I'm Maggie Kincaid, as Todd mentioned. I've been at Mercer for about 3 years, and I'll be leading the project management efforts for our Mercer OEB team. Hopefully keeping them on track and having them deliver quality reports to you, and making sure that they stay on track. And I think that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
She's the boss.
Yeah, she keeps us in line. Ollie, do we want to throw it open for questions, or?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, Mercer's not on the agenda today other than the meet and greet, but you'll definitely be getting to know them in future meetings. So feel free to fire away.
Are you all out of the Seattle area? Is that you're all in Seattle?
Actually, we're 2 and 2. So Maggie and I both sit in the Seattle area, but Sally and Kirsten are based in the Portland area.
Any other questions?
I think the question everybody wants to ask is, how was Jeff Brown as a boss? But
Well, I'm a little biased, but I have to say he was an awesome boss.
okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, he was a great mentor.
Robert,
Yes, Tom.
could you have the team or maybe Ollie go over the transition planning. I know that at least my assumption is that Mercer becomes our consultants in October 1, 2022, but it would be helpful to know what happens from now until then.
Yeah, they're actually already on contract, and we still have Willis Towers through the end of the year for certain projects that are ongoing. And really, that's what this nice break in the summer is for, Tom, is to really work out a transition plan that makes sense for everybody. So I think in our next leadership meeting next week is kind of when we're going to map some of that out and come up with that plan.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think I speak for all of us when we say we look forward to working with everyone at Mercer. And I don't see any other comments or questions. So we'll move on to the open enrollment communications plan update with Jackie.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to try and turn my camera on. I hope, yeah. Hi. What I'm going to show you today on the slides is actually a presentation that Cindy Bowman and I made to the stakeholders group. So that's why you see all those different logos on there. Rather than just focusing on open enrollment, I realize we have a few new board members, so I thought it might be helpful to just sort of go over all of our communications plan for the year, rather than just sticking to open enrollment. So next slide. Hopefully Rose is working on that.
No, I can see it. Can you not see it, Jackie?
I don't, I just see the title.
Can anybody else see it?
I just see the title as well.
Oh, there it goes.
Oh, there it comes.
Wow, talk about a delay.
Yes, as it bounces up to the outer space satellites and back.
Because I see it. All right.
Okay, great. I see it now. So this element is mostly done already, but just to give you a sense of how our communications for the year kick off, when the board makes their decisions for the upcoming plan year, this year that happened in April, then we furiously put together the rates and plan designs and get those up on the website by May 6th. And we send an email out to all of our entities. We have an ongoing listserv that kind of gets updated as staff out at the entities come and go. But so we kick out an email to them saying, ta-da, the plans and rates are available now. And that really kicks off the EE plan management period, where each entity chooses for their employment groups within their entity which plans they're going to offer. So there can be a lot of different bargaining contracts with different union groups and deciding what their contribution is going to be versus what the employee pays and all that sort of stuff. So they have from mid-May to mid-June to make those elections, and they let our staff know whether they want to keep everything the same as previous years, which makes things pretty easy, or if there are new plans available, or if they want to make some changes, they have until mid-June to get that in place. And then we hold a Prepare for Open Enrollment webinar this year that's going to be held on June 21st. And that really just gives all of the administrators kind of a 101 on, okay, here's our timeline. These are the days that we're going to pull data out of the system. So if you have terminated employees that need to get out of there or new hires that need to get in there, like just kind of giving them the update on where, when we're going to be pulling data so that they can get things as cleaned up as possible. Next slide. Oh, I kind of forgot to mention that we also hold a webinar for the insurance committees, which really involves all of the carriers creating a video presentation on whatever they're offering for the upcoming year. And we make all of those videos available on demand online, as well as copies of the slides and some additional handouts if carriers have flyers they want to make available. So we kind of replicate the old school version of going out to each entity and pitching all this stuff. We put it all online so that they can kind of get the same information, but at their convenience. So this is a screenshot of the website, the homepage, and that's where you can see where it's all circled and arrow pointing to it, that's where the insurance committees can find the new information for the new year. And like I said, we have all of the information available on demand, as well as hosting a webinar where it's really 2 hours of showing all of those presentations and offering a Q&A in between each one so that they can ask their questions. Next slide.
Jackie, I have a white screen.
Oh. Oh, so do I now.
That's not right.
No. I did look at your attachments and it was all there before. I don't have it, unfortunately. Well, I'll just talk off the top of my head and no, I actually don't.
No? Okay. I'll keep working on it.
Okay. And in the meantime, I'll just kind of give you the verbal rundown, and if we get some visuals to go with it, great. Oh, there's something happened. Well, that's your computer desktop now. So let's see. So once the entities make their plan selections, and we get all set for open enrollment. So we have a lot of communications that we put together for members, and basically it consists of a digital booklet so that we work with all of our carriers and partners to put together a digital booklet that basically explains all the options. And we also take the plan design, plan comparisons, benefit summary. We're so close. There we go. Oh, almost had it, Rose. So anyway, there's a digital booklet that we make available online so they can go through, and it's got lots of embedded links so that they can look at the table of contents, click on exactly what subject they want to look at, and it bounces them right to that. You can see here on the a screenshot of the homepage that there's last year's booklet is still up there for people to refer to throughout the year. But our administrators also have kind of their own section of our website. So we have this starting point for administrators that people can click, and then next screen, Rose. Fingers crossed that this works. Yes. So then on the administrator start page, there's a handy little I want to section, and there are links to the things that they're commonly going to want to see. So they can view the insurance committee information. They can look at the rates and plan designs, and the one that's circled there is the OEBB's open enrollment communications that we're sending to members. So that's a real handy reference for them. It gives them the whole schedule of everything we're sending out, how we're sending it out, who we're sending it to, and embedded links so that they can see a sample of each one. So it's a real handy thing to keep people informed all throughout the year. Next slide. This is a sample of that page with last year's materials on there. But so you can see down the description on the left are all the hyperlinks where they can get their samples. The center section describes who's getting it and how it's going out. And then there's also the data pull date. So that is handy for them. Like for instance, if they're adding new hires to the system and they don't remember, like, well, is this person going to get an open enrollment packet from OEBB or not? This will tell them exactly when we pulled the data for our mailings so that then they know, okay, well, this person got entered into the system after that date, so I need to get them that information. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback on having this chart there. And then the far column just shows when members can expect to receive that. Next page. So this is just, we have some vanity URLs. We have oebinfo.com, which is our homepage, and there's a shot there. You can see that we always keep our most popular links right there under the logo so that members can always click there and get to things easily. And as I said, we keep a copy of our booklet up there throughout the year. As the new one becomes available, that will replace this old one, but we do still keep other links to the older one around for like new hires who come along in August. That is still available on the new hire page and various places online, so they'll still find it, but we keep the most up-to-date one up front. And as I mentioned before, the starting point for the administrators. So we try to keep everything as clean as possible, but also as available on that homepage so it's easy to find what they want. Next slide. Then we have the OEBOndemand.com URL, and that takes members to, you know how I was describing that for the insurance committees, we have presentation videos and the PDF of the slides and the handouts. We do a very similar thing for members. So for open enrollment, all of the carriers do a similar process. They create videos presenting what they're offering for the year. And we have a similar page so that members can 24/7, if they just want to refresh or learn about, oh, well, I want this particular carrier, this particular plan, I want to go learn about that. Everything is available on demand at oebondemand.com. Next slide. Then we have oebenroll.com, which is the enrollment system, and we also have plenty of links to that on the website as well. But that's a nice, easy way for people to remember how to get to the enrollment system. And then we also have oebplandocs.com, where it's just kind of an easy reference to get to the enrollment guide booklet, the plan comparisons, plan summaries and handbooks, and rates. And here you can see that we have, if one were to scroll down further on the page, they would see the previous plan year as well as the current. And that sort of rolls throughout the year so that when we get the upcoming plan year, then it becomes upcoming and current. And so you always have 2 years worth of whatever's relevant at the time. Next slide. So this is a bit off, like I said, other than open enrollment. A couple of years ago, the Secretary of State did an audit of our operations and had some recommendations for us involving communications. So one of those recommendations was to consistently collect, analyze, and share results of employers and members' experiences to better inform the board decisions. And so last month, I believe, was the survey results we reported. I think Cindy actually reported those for you. So we've been doing that. And also we're working on getting our new benefit system. So we are getting, once that new system gets in place, it's a long process, but that will also help track and categorize customer service phone calls and designing more carrier reporting to gather benefit utilization and member experience. So we are tackling that one. Next slide. Their second recommendation was to improve communications with employers, members, and stakeholders about the board's ongoing administration of benefits. We had been doing these group meetings online, basically a webinar or virtual meeting with administrators out in the field called the Benefits Information Exchange. And when COVID hit, that got a little crazy and we kind of had to be juggling other things and that it got postponed for a while. But so we have resumed having those quarterly and the feedback on those is good, but it's a nice two-way exchange where the entity administrators can give us feedback and ask us questions, as well as us pushing new information out to them. We do recognize that not everybody attends those, so we do still push out emails to all of our administrators as well. But it's just kind of an alternative, a new way for people who prefer to be in a meeting and see people's faces and ask questions. It's just another alternative way to share information. Next slide. So also along those lines, for members, the Secretary of State recommended that we do more education on our benefits packages throughout the year rather than focusing everything on open enrollment. And so in that vein, we started a monthly benefits newsletter, which I believe I've been copying you all on when it goes out, I hope. If you're not getting that, let me know and I'll make sure to add you to the list. But I think I've updated the board mailing list. And basically, it's about the second full week of the month. So it's around the 7th or so every month we send out an email that not only covers wellness efforts, which we had been doing before, but now it includes more benefits education as well. So we kind of pick a theme, and for each month we'll ask the carriers, well, could you provide an article that explains how OEB benefits could help with this particular issue? Or is there, if we've been getting a lot of phone calls or emails from members about certain subjects, then we can say, well, could you send us an article on that so that we can educate people? So that's been received really well. We started that last October, and so far so good. People are really appreciating the content. Also, we're working with our new consultant, Mercer, to update our webpage with highlights of the board decision-making process and actions. We haven't actually implemented that yet, but that is on our radar for the near future to make our board page of our website not just a list of meetings and meeting recordings, but to get it a little more engaging and have some more detail, some summaries of how the board process works, what you guys are thinking about, what options you're considering, and just kind of trying to get our members a little more educated and involved in all that. Next slide. Uh-oh. We'll see. That may have actually covered most of it. There might be one more point. Okay, yeah. So the third audit recommendation was to help members better understand the details of their insurance coverage and the utilization of benefits. And so that is, like I mentioned, we're doing this monthly newsletter trying to incorporate some benefits education. And we're also working with our new consultant on some Benefits 101 instructional videos. We had made a few of those back in 2016, and our benefits have changed quite a bit since then. But some of the things are still the same. What's a QSC? When can you change your benefits? What should you think about as a new hire? So those are still out there, but they're a little buried now. So we kind of want to refresh the look of those, make sure the content is all up to date, and get some fresh videos out there for our members. So we have that on the horizon for this upcoming year. One other thing that that Mercer had helped PEB implement that we considered on the OEB side, and we're not quite figuring out how to effectively do it yet. But it's a welcome to OEB sort of orientation video for new hires. It's a little more difficult with OEB than it is with PEB because every educational entity has their own, not only do they maybe offer different plans from other entities, but they also might offer different plans even within their own employment. Like they licensed might get something different than administrators, and everybody's payments are different. It's really difficult for us to be very clear with a new hire because there are so many things that are specific to the entity. So we're still trying to figure out if there's a way that we could provide some sort of umbrella overview that would apply to everybody and still be helpful. But we haven't quite figured that out. That's on our to-do list for the upcoming year to think about. But I believe that's our last slide. Is that true, Rose? I think so.
One more. It'll come up in a minute. I know it will.
Yeah. Okay, so these are basically just going through what we're planning on sending out. It's really the same that we've been doing for the last couple of years, but just sort of a rundown. We are providing some PDF posters that entities can self-print if they want. So there's letter size and 11 by 17. And so we have designers working on that as well as our booklet. We've got a couple postcards going out like we normally do. One goes out at like August 1st, or I should say it's the last week in July, giving them a heads up that their packet is coming August 1st. So it's just a postcard that's bright and catchy saying, watch your mail. You'll have an envelope that looks like this coming next week that has your important information. Then when that packet goes out, it has a cover letter that is specific to each employee. So that one really does get customized down to the employee level. And it'll say, hi, Joe Smith, you have these plans available to you for the upcoming year. Here are the links to our website where you can find the booklet, where you can find your plan summaries. Actually, we mail the printed versions of the plan summaries right in there, so they don't have to go look for those online. But basically, we provide most things online now, but we do still do that paper cover letter and the paper plan comparisons. And the cover letter shows them which plans they can choose from. So if something isn't available to them, it will still be shown in that summary, but at least they can look at their cover letter and say, oh, well, I have the choice of these 3, or whatever the case may be. Then we do another postcard mid-August, right as open enrollment is starting, August 15th, that goes out and reminds them that open enrollment is mandatory, that they do need to enroll. Here's the website, it's open now, go do it. And the cover letter tells them if we have like a webinar where we're going to be going through all the presentations. That's also recorded, so if they can't make that specific time, they can still register and get a link to the recording afterwards, or we also post the recording on the website so people can go look for it and find it there. And this year, the one new thing we are planning is a virtual benefits fair, which is something that PEB did last year with Mercer, and it seemed to go really well. So OEB's taking Mercer up on it this year. And it's really just sort of a virtual environment that gives that pseudo experience of walking into a big auditorium and saying, oh, well, there's the Kaiser booth, I'm going to go talk to them. There's the Moda booth, I'm going to go talk to them. And it's not quite the same because you don't literally talk to live people, but you can watch their video, you can collect their PDFs, and then it has the contact information. So if you do want to reach out to somebody, you can. So it's just another way of presenting it. We're trying to utilize all the new technology and get to people in different ways. And hopefully, based on our survey this last year, having gone pretty, almost purely digital for the last 2 years, it's gone really well. People have not had any problem transitioning to digital materials. So we're keeping on with that approach. But that pretty much sums it up. Does anybody have any questions?
I do
This is JJ. I
not
had
see any.
couple of thoughts.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So you were talking about creating a video, and it is really hard in OEB because every entity is a little different. But I had some thoughts you may think about, that things you could focus on that I think would be super helpful for the members. They're not going to be able to give any information on rates, costs, because that's just too complex. But what you can talk about, which I think would be super helpful, is how OEB works to propagate coordination of care. I think that's something that as an agency, we don't do a very good job of. And it's one of the things that differentiates us and what we do versus most other insurance providers. And it makes us superior, frankly. And also that primary thing is a great way that we can use in marketing materials outside of new employees. Also talk about the structure of how our rates are far more stable than what you'll get in other groups because of the size of our group and the tie-in to legislative requirements. Another thing that would be super helpful is just a tutorial on how to find care, how to find a primary care physician. And then when and for what reasons would you contact OEB versus Moda or Kaiser?
That is great. We do actually have a page of our booklet that goes over that a little bit. And we might still have it out there. We called it Who You Gonna Call? And kind of a Ghostbusters reference. But that's definitely a big one that we had recognized that people don't know who to call for what. And so we did outline, this is what OEB's role is. This is what the carrier's role is. This is what your doctor's role is. And so here's when to call different people. But yeah, I think refreshing that or getting that back out there as well as the other things you mentioned would be great.
Yeah, well, and there's lots of stuff out there and people just don't know even where to look. I mean, when you say we've created a document, to be honest, people have no idea. There's so many documents and everything. It's this wash of stuff. And so
yeah.
I really like the idea that you said of here's a new employee video. I know if you created that, I would show it to every single new employer that I have. I'm I'm an HR director for a county, and every single person would get that as part of their benefits orientation. So it would be a nice, like easy, like here you go, spoon feed you some stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll probably be back in touch with you to get some assistance on an outline and go, okay, what can we cover? What would be helpful? Because yeah, that's a great idea.
All right, anybody else?
Okay, well, thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, we are next up with an update on the system replacement project scheduled for, I don't know when. So, and that is Matt. Sorry, Matt, I didn't say who was presenting in a timely fashion, at least.
Oh, good. Hi, everybody. Matt Arness. I think it's the first time I've met with this board, so brief introduction. I've been with the state for about 2 years, I guess, in this October. I worked in the private sector before that, locally at Adidas and Nike in business and IT roles. So what I'll give today is a higher level update that we generally go over with our executive committee and with our project team, but is the same basic format and structure that we talk about there. So we'll talk about a project one pager, something that I would encourage you all to share with people. If they're curious about the project, it should be an easy way for you to explain at a very high level the key parts of it. Talk about some of our benefits and measures and how we're working with our business relationship team to make sure that we deep dive into that and tie back to the state, give you a brief status update, and then talk about the overall roadmap for the project, and then a very high level budget and cost estimate. Next slide. Okay, next slide, please. And so this is our one pager for the project, and the handy thing about these, they're basically summaries of the project charter, and it should give you all as board members, if you need something for talking points or be able to get a high level summary of the project, you'll see the why we're doing the project because of Bill 1067. It'll give you the key contacts of the project, what's in scope, replacing the BMS project, what's out of scope, things like managing the legacy benefits management system, key assumptions, overall budget, and then some of the things like where is it that we're coming from and where are we going to, plus our high level schedule. I think this the from to and things, obviously this board's I would think well versed on this, but it's probably a chance to me as a PM to pause here just a little bit and ask, does this all feel fairly familiar? Things like poor user experience of our current system. We're hoping to improve then to a much better user experience because we'll have a much newer system. We'll have a system that's not 15 years old. We'll have a system that hasn't been customized. Are these fairly common themes that this board has dealt with in dealing with this project?
Yeah, that's the feedback that we've received. I think our customer service survey usually informs us of areas with our system that we can improve.
Yeah, thank you. And I assume, and the reason I ask that is I want to make sure that as a project team, as a project manager, that we're really representing what this board wants. And that's again why we have these high level summaries so that we can make sure to check on these. So as you review this, and I won't go through point by point on this, but as you do, if there's anything that comes up where you feel like there's any check and adjust that needs to happen, I would encourage you to contact Damien or Barry who can then work with me and the team and make sure that we're online with you all. I'm going to come back to the high-level schedule later on rather than this slide because we have a little bit better slide that summarizes and creates a better visual. So next slide, please. There we go. And I mentioned Jeremy Atkins, who's our business relationship manager. I share this slide because this is just one of the ways we tie back to the business team and make sure that we're tying back to the value alignments as we work with the state. And so the state has their overall goals that they're trying to do, and we try to make sure that all of our projects follow along those lines. Now, this is very high level. And the reason I share this now is because when I have a future time to meet with this team, I'll be able to show the board where we've really dialed into the objectives and success criteria, and then had very specific measurables that we can tie back into the states and the governor's value alignments. And so some of these things, when we're talking about reducing costs, for instance, number 4, they're very high level at this point. And so we talk about the annual invoice total year over year. We tie that back to reduce costs. They're not very specific at this point, but we are going through a series of what our vendor calls discovery meetings and then fit gap sessions. It'll end in the September timeframe. As we go through those workshops, we'll have very, very detailed updates to this slide. So again, this is more of a setup for future conversations. Next slide, please. Rose. We have the next slide, please.
I've changed the slide. It's just
Okay.
a really
We have
slow delay.
A little lag today. There we go. So the total project is green status. And so things are actually running well. I would like to pause on the schedule. We have called that out as yellow. And one of the things that has happened is our overall RFP process and contract negotiations take a bit of time. And part of that is a function of state projects. And I mentioned that because I'm relatively new to the state as opposed to private sector. And we do take a lot longer through our procurement process. And I think it's because, frankly, we are super, super thorough about the process and making sure that we're having a very fair and transparent bidding process with our with the open market. And so the contract negotiations did take longer than we initially thought. But now that we're going into the implementation phase with the solution provider, we will probably move that to green. So certainly within the next time, I would anticipate that with this team. Overall scope, very strong alignment with the project sponsor, and the overall project team is very well aligned on what we're doing. The budget, we've been able to get a recent estimate of 13.5 million. I will talk a little bit about how that breaks off into bienniums, but we've done a good job so far. The previous project team before I came on, and also over the past year and a half, of really managing underneath the budgets that we've had. And this most recent budget was just approved by the steering committee. In terms of resources, we have one of the things that's a comparative advantage for this project is that the business teams are very well versed, very experienced, a lot of time in their positions. So In terms of overall knowledge from the business teams, incredibly strong compared to other projects that I've worked on. So I think it's a huge advantage in terms of our ability to put a new benefits management system in. The one thing I would call out, though, is that because we haven't put in a new benefits upgrade or a new system for quite some time, one of the areas that we're having to help the team a little bit more is on project management and on the things that you would normally go through for implementation. This was called out by our IQMS vendor as a potential risk. And so one of the things that we've done is we're hiring extra resources around project implementation and testing and UAT. And so I think that was a good insight from our IQMS vendor, and we put a good action plan. When I say we, I want to credit Barry and Damien for putting in a good action plan on that. Any questions before I move on to the next slide? There we are. Okay, this is a high-level project map that I was mentioning. And so a couple things to call out here is the line on the top that shows the Lifeworks 23-month implementation plan. And you notice the 14 and the 9. Basically what that is an indication of is their overall implementation. 14 months of that will be in this biennium, 9 months will be into the next biennium. We started in May, and we anticipate going live in March of 2024, having a 90-day stabilization period, and then we'll go into operations and maintenance after that. You'll notice that the open enrollment periods are designated with those light colored gray bars. The nice thing about this is we haven't seen that we have any interference with our go live and those open enrollment periods. And I think that's a substantial risk to the project if we were to bump into that. And right now we look like we're in a very good place that will not be an issue. Next slide, please. And this is what I was mentioning before, the overall cost of the project. In the 19 through 21 biennium, I think we had 2.3 million budgeted. We had a little bit of a slow start on the project because we were looking at things, some different vendors. And so, as I mentioned, that procurement process took quite a while. The project only spent 600,000. In the current biennium, we have approval for 9.3 from this board, or from both boards. We think our latest estimates are going to come in around 9 million, and then an additional 3.9 million for the 23-25 biennium, putting us at a total cost of about 13.5. I'm working with Rosie right now on the POP for the 23-25 biennium, and putting together the justification and then all the voting from that. So I'm sure this board will also see some further communication on that from Rosie as well.
Matt, this is Ollie. I just wanted to add that we did not have to borrow any funds to build the system, which was pretty huge because we did have to borrow funds for OEBB's initial system. So we've been able to fund development out of reserves. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Ollie. All right, that's the update for today. Any questions, comments, or anything that the board would like me to follow up on?
I do not see any questions or comments at this time.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to slide back my chair just for one moment. I want to introduce you to my project team. Those are my main assistants on the couch, and that's the one that was snoring in the background. So,
well, you have to give us names now, right?
Oh, yeah. Sophia, and that's Coco Chanel. They're French
All right.
bulldogs.
And Robert, I just want to thank Matt and the team. I mean, this is really a huge investment for the board. And, you know, recently we passed the next called Stage Gate, and the Legislative Fiscal Office analyst said that he's never seen more positive feedback from their IT oversight group, which also includes executive department members. And I think part of the reason there's so much oversight, you know, on these development projects is because there's been some pretty massive failures that were public. And I think, you know, we just have an unbelievable team that is building an incredibly complex system for both PEB and OEB. And I think that they've made tremendous progress, and we're just excited to see it become a reality and, you know, in the short term. So thank you.
Thanks, Holly. JJ, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I don't know if you have this information, but I think it would be helpful for the public who may be listening to this meeting. Can you talk for a minute or two about how these upgrades are going to lead to better security? I know there's been a substantive amount of cyber attacks around to public entities. I think it was City of Portland just lost $1.4 million due to a cyber attack recently. So talking about how this will help protect our members would be helpful.
Absolutely. One of the things that we first did is the project team was very keen on making security a high priority of the project, and also having an early and often interaction with the security team across the state within OEB, PEB, the security team there, and also with the state oversight. And so one of the things we've had, like all projects across the state, is an extensive security plan, which I believe has 70 some different unique steps that each of the vendors who proposed have to meet before we'll select that vendor or even consider them. And so what we've done is had, as I said, very deep interaction and involvement from the security teams to ensure that, and also with Microsoft, who we use Azure, or the vendors using Azure. And so as we continue through the project, we have a specific project working group that is dedicated just to following security over the 23-month implementation and ensure that organs and members' security needs are taken care of. I hope that wasn't too high level. We can certainly dive into, probably offline or a separate meeting, but we can dive into the extensive security plan that the states help us craft.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit more color too. You know, really the security issues were the genesis behind the recommendation that we replace the systems. You know, they're legacy systems, and you know, I mean, the PEB system's going on almost 20 years old, and OEB's not much younger than that. So that was really the push behind the replacement system project, was just concerns over security. So that's really been first and foremost the top priority.
Thanks, Ellie. That's mostly what I was looking for, just a public statement about need for security, and that's a genesis for why we're spending $13 million on a system. It's not just about operational efficiency, it's about protecting the assets that we secure. Thanks.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Jeff, you have a question?
I was just going to say, I think that the plan for replacing our existing system started before Ali was our director. So it's been in the works a long time.
That's very true. It has, and it is I mentioned stage gate, and it really is just about one stage at a time. And getting to this point, you know, is exciting. I think it'll become much more exciting for the board when you find out what we can actually do with this, and we can really take, you know, benefits administration and to the next level and deliver on some pretty incredible things for assets for our membership and the board and our stakeholders as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt, for the update. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you all.
All right, we are 20 minutes ahead to schedule. If everybody's okay with it, how about we have Ali do the budget update before our break? Would that be okay?
Definitely. All right, Rose, next slide, please. So today we'll be focusing on our semi-annual budget and financial update on 3 areas. We'll look at the status of OEBB's 2021 to 23 legislatively approved biennial budget. That's we work in 2 years, and that 2-year budget extends from July 1st of 2021 to June 30th of 2023. So I try to give these updates and not get too confusing information due to the fact that an actual state biennial budget extends over 3 plan years for OEBB. So I'll definitely identify those instances. And second, we'll take a historical look at our claims paid over the past 4 years and how it has impacted our funding position with MOTA. And then third, we'll take a look at our cash reserves, also known as our stabilization funds. So really, this is intended to be a high-level status report. We'll be presenting a much more detailed report in the fall that Mercer will lead. That will provide a more in-depth analysis of our minimum premium funding model with MOTA, including future projections, as well as explore the mechanics of the model in a minimum premium 101 educational piece. We'll also take a closer look at our reserve accounts and begin the discussion of developing a formal board policy over its reserves, which, as you'll see today, have grown significantly over the past couple of years. So kicking this off, let's look at our 21-23 biennial budget status. As you may recall, we have 2 budget reporting and decision structures. The first is the stabilization fund budget, which accounts for 99% of our $1.9 billion biennial budget and captures all of the expenditures made for our member benefits for all lines of coverage. Each month we invoice our participating entities after reconciling eligibility and enrollment in our plans, and we pass most of those dollars through to our insurance carriers. And as you can see, we have completed 38% of the biennium and have expended about 35.4% of our budget. So we're a little bit more than 2.5% under our budget. If the board stays under its 3.4% annual increase cap, legislative cap, which it is done every year and is mandated to do so, obviously, the only way to exceed our stabilization fund budget is through higher number of enrollments than were forecasted, or a significant increase in state and or federal taxes and fees, which, as we've talked about several times, aren't included in the 3.4% calculation. So what that means is you have more dollars flowing through the system at an aggregate level, but you're still on a PEPM per employee per month basis. You're still staying under that 3.4% based on the rates that you adopted during the renewal. Hopefully that makes sense so far. So the other budget reporting structure is our operations budget, and this represents 1% of the total budget, which is $22 million over the biennium. of which 4.5 million is dedicated to the system replacement project. The revenue source for our operations budget is the 1.3% assessment on core benefit premiums. And this funds all employee personal services, consultant fees, system development and programming costs, as well as all the other costs of doing business. As you can see, through 38% of the biennium, we have expended about 22.5%, so we're well under budget. But as our system development project picks up steam, I would anticipate the gap narrowing very quickly. So we'll be keeping a close eye on it. Next slide, please, Rose. All right. The next slide, we'll take a look at the MOTA dental and medical claims and how they fluctuate over the past few plan years, and take a partial look at 2022 through 5 months. So we're talking plan year this time. Starting with our dental claims, you can reference the 2 bars as the maximum claims liability, which is also known in a minimum premium arrangement as the premium. And the next bar over is the gross adjusted claims, which are the total claims paid net any adjustments. So in the 2017-18 plan year, we collected more in premiums than we paid out in claims, which resulted in a $3.6 million surplus. And you'll see that represented in the claims liability balance line. In fact, the surplus was realized in every other year as well. You can really see the level of claims drop off in the 1920 and 2021 plan years, which of course were the pandemic years. If you turn to the next slide, please, Rose. So the next slide shows medical claims versus premiums. You'll notice we had a deficit in years 17-18 and 18-19, where we paid out more in claims than received in premiums. This turned around into large surpluses in 1920 and 2021, and the first 5 months of 21-22 plan year. As I mentioned earlier, we will have a more comprehensive look at the minimum premium funding model in the fall and where things stand with what we call the cumulative claims liability balance. And that's something that is an ending balance and a beginning balance from year to year, rather than just reported on a plan year basis. The takeaway for now is the pandemic has moved OEB into surplus territory, which we will look at on the next slide, Rose. Thank you. This next slide shows our reserve cash balance reported through March of 2022. It currently sits at $121.6 million. And this is comprised of mainly 3 pots of money. The rate stabilization reserve funds, also known as RSR funds, at $22.4 million. And this was generated from the Senate Bill 1067 hospital cap savings. We also have $63 million in MOTA medical and dental cumulative claims reserve, which you saw in the last 2 slides. And the stabilization reserve, which has slowly been built up over the years with interest earnings, budget savings, and some federal investment funds. The RSR reserve and stabilization fund reserve are very different than the medical and dental cumulative claims liability, which can fluctuate dramatically month to month, among other reasons we will talk about in the fall. But the stabilization fund reserve is again an account that's grown through the years very slowly, where the RSR reserve was kind of built on a one-time savings event, and then the medical and dental cumulative claims liability reserve is, again, a few large claims months away from being dramatically reduced or back into a negative deficit. So again, we'll be bringing a comprehensive report in the fall. We'll work with Mercer on that this summer. And I think with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Any questions? Wally, you were so complete and comprehensive that nobody has anything to say.
Financial reports usually leave the board speechless, so it's okay. Thank you.
Maybe it's more that we feel comforted.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
I do have a question. You know, you talked about the how high claims could wipe out things. Do we have reinsurance, or you know, sometimes entities go on self-insured, oftentimes will buy reinsurance, or you know, coverage that covers you know, the very super high cost claims?
Yeah, OEBB does not purchase reinsurance. Tom, I think that's probably one of those questions that we'll explore a little bit more in the fall, after talking with carriers, and because that's kind of a complex question right now to answer.
Okay. So the answer is no, but it is something that as we look at what, you know, what to do and the long-term future, it will be something we'll discuss.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Jeff, hand raised. Jeff? All right, Jeff, I'm going to give you one more chance.
I'm speaking into mute. Ollie, the second line, is that the difference between our maximum claim liability and what we paid?
The MOTA medical dental reserve?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the cumulative claims balance as of March 2022.
Okay, so it's actually money that hasn't been spent, and we may never have to spend that, correct?
That's correct. So without getting into too much detail, there's claims run out, there's settlement funds. This is really that line that, you know, can disappear really quickly, but it's still money that we have in our reserves right now. So
okay, so the state is holding it in essence, yeah, as a liability.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even really like calling it a reserve. It's more of a balance, but you know, it's on the books. So
yeah, I appreciate that. The word reserve always scares me for those that are hunting for funds.
Yeah, right. And you're right. I mean, that's the important part of coming back in the fall is really, it's well known that PEB's had significant reserves that have kind of been rated by the legislature over the years, and I think developing a formal board policy over its reserves is going to be helpful, and with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ali. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It looks like Erica's and her crew's up next. Let's take a break until 2:25. Erica, is that going to be okay?
That works great. Thanks.
Okay. See y'all back at 2:25.
Erica, I'm just warning you, my computer doesn't like me today, so.
I've noticed that, Rose.
If you have problems, you may have to take over your own slides.
Oh, okay, perfect. I have them pulled up anyway, so that'll work out.
All right.
Rose, it was fine this morning.
I know, but it doesn't like me this afternoon.
All right.
The whole white screen was weird.
Yeah. So if those slides, if we have any problems with the slides for the CI report, I'll just do it verbal. That won't be an issue.
Okay, hopefully we won't.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever. Okay, fine.
Okay, it's 2:25. We are going to hear back from our two carriers on medical plans, customer service, and member experience surveys. Moda's going to go first and then KP, and you both have roughly 15 minutes scheduled apiece, but of course we're running a little bit early, so if you need some flexibility, then feel free. Okay. Erica, you are up first.
Great. Thank you guys very much. Thanks for having me today. Just going to go over some of the surveys we do on our members today and some enhancements we have coming for our member experience. So first, just to talk about some of the surveys we do. One of the types of surveys we give our members is when we want to ask them about a specific topic. We'll send these out just periodically. For example, when we had the Synergy and Summit plans, we wanted to understand why members would choose to leave a Synergy or Summit plan and move back to the statewide plan. So we sent members a survey, just getting their feedback about that. We'll also send surveys to members if there's something we think members might be having an issue with and just get some feedback from them. So these are just sporadic surveys and not to the entire population either. We also do what we call an after call survey. And this is a survey we give to members after they work with a Health Navigator. So when members call into our Health Navigator team, before they get connected to a Health Navigator, they will get a question asking if they'd like to take a survey after their call ends. And if the member responds yes, then after their call ends, then they'll be routed in to take a quick survey that's just a couple of questions long. And I'll have some results from that survey here in a few slides. Another survey we do is called a CAPS survey. And this is a survey that is now in our medical contract as a performance guarantee. And this is a standardized survey that health plans give to their members across the country, and then it can be compared to benchmarks with other plans. And today we do a book of business CAP survey on our medical plan. And starting this year, we're doing one specific to OEBB and PEB. And in our contract, there are two specific questions that we'll be reporting to OEBB on, and that is the overall satisfaction with the health plan and also getting needed care. So those will be reported to OEBB by September 15th of 2023 per our contract. So that's a new survey that we'll be reporting on. And then lastly, we are in the process of creating a member satisfaction survey. And this is a survey that we're going to be sending to our members. It's an internal survey that we're developing. And we're really sending it out just to get feedback about the plan and areas for improvement. So just to see if there's any enhancements members might like for the plan, if there's anything that they're having concerns or issues with that we might be able to help with, or maybe it'll help us identify if there's something that we're not communicating very well to members. For example, if members don't understand how the PCP 360 works or something specific about that, we're hoping that the survey can give us some of those answers so we can target our communications a little bit better to members. And like I said, we're currently developing that survey and anticipate that we'll actually start deploying it in fourth quarter of 2022 or first quarter of 2023. All right, next, a question.
Hi, I have a question about the satisfaction survey. I was just curious if in looking at the data, if you will be able to separate or slice it by folks who have actually like used their benefits versus not used their benefits?
Yes, that is something that we do anticipate being able to do, and so that we can slice it. If we can tie the survey back to the member, then we can slice it and dissect to any information that we have about that member. So if they've utilized services, where they live, anything else about the member.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right, next slide, Rose. Is this where you're having troubles, Rose?
Apparently, if you're not seeing it. Should I be on slide 3?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's what I see.
Okay, yeah, we're still seeing slide 2. Do you want me to take control?
Yeah, just go ahead and do it.
Okay, and then if I take
My
control,
computer
I won't be able to see if people have their hands raised. So please interrupt me if you have a question.
Eric, I think I can help with that. So
perfect. Okay. All right. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen now.
Moda 360, yes.
Perfect. All right, so on the next slide, I'm going to give some results from the after call surveys that we've been doing. But before then, I just wanted to do a reminder about what our health navigators are. And this is a fairly new team that we implemented 10/1/2020 for OEBB when we launched Moda 360. And the health navigators are a group of really high qualified, I say superstar customer service representatives. And their job is really to take the member out of the middle of situations and help them navigate the healthcare system that we all know can be complex at times. And so I'd like to give just an example of what a health navigator does and how that would compare with a traditional customer service rep. And the example that I like to give is on DME, or durable medical equipment, because it feels like a lot of the feedback that I've been seeing come back, this is something that the health navigators help with quite often. And so when a member gets a prescription for DME, a lot of times it can require coordination between information being sent in from their PCP or specialist. And sometimes they also need a PA with MODA. And so coordinating all of that information sometimes can cause problems. And so if a DME provider doesn't get all of the needed information, they'll send out a denial to the provider and to the member. And when the member gets that, a lot of times they'll call MODA with those questions. And typically, we'll get that, and a customer service rep can say, it looks like your provider needs to submit some additional information. But the member is really left to try and figure that out on their own. And so they, have to try calling their provider, which can take days sometimes for providers to return calls back as they're very busy. And a lot of times the member just doesn't know the right question to ask because this isn't something that they do every day. This is probably the first time they've experienced this. So with our health navigators, it's really their job to take that on themselves. So instead, they will reach out to the provider and they'll work between the PCP, MODA, and the DME provider just to ensure that everybody has the right information. And sometimes that can take several different calls to different people to get all of that information together. And then they'll bring the member back in after they've resolved the issue. They also, in addition to helping members navigate that system, they're also there to help connect members to the right resources. So they're using a new technology console that our navigators use that provides them with a lot of additional information about that member. So it shows them gaps in care, or what we call care reminders. These are preventive services that maybe a member is behind on. So Navigator can see if a member hasn't had a dental cleaning within the last year, or they might be able to see if a diabetic hasn't had their A1C test done. And so the Navigator can help connect the member to the provider. Maybe it's helping them find a dentist and schedule that appointment. And they can just help them close those gaps. They also can see what programs that a member is eligible for and the ones that we think would be a good fit for that member. So for example, they might be able to see that This member's a diabetic, and we've invited them into the Livongo program. And so they can help the member get connected to that program. Their technology console has a lot of additional information, but those are just a couple examples of how they're helping connect members to the right resources. So the results that we have from the survey, I have results from last year and then results from this year so far, but they look very similar. The first question that we ask is how satisfied they are with the Navigator, and 92% say that they're satisfied or very satisfied. And then the other question is, how satisfied are they with the Health Navigator's knowledge? And 99% have said that they're satisfied or very satisfied with that as well. And then if we go to the next year, the results are almost the same. So pretty consistent with the way members are responding to these calls. And it's one thing to ask, there we go. It's one thing to ask members a specific question and have them respond, but members are also leaving quite a few comments for us, and they're leaving comments either through this after call survey, and a lot of times members will decline the survey and then go through, and work with the Navigator, and then either call us back or send us an email with feedback for the Navigator. And so this is just a sample of some of the feedback that we have received recently from OEBB members, and I'm just going to read one of them. It's this one down here. I'm in the bottom left-hand corner because it describes that scenario that I explained about the DME. And it says, OEBB member Holly said that she had been having a really hard time with the DME provider. And Pam took the situation by the reins, and after several calls and multiple levels of people, which does happen, was able to get them to what she needed. She said, I could not have done it without her, and she was so great and helpful, and she deserves to be given gold stars. So I actually see quite a few feedback about that DME provider specifically, that situation. So that's really what our navigators are there to help members with, so that they're not left trying to figure out how to navigate that situation on their own.
I'm seeing a couple questions, people's hands up.
Oh, sorry, I did not. So, well, it's Jeff. I think Michelle's was already up, I think. So, Michelle, do you have another question?
Nope, sorry about that.
Okay, Jeff.
I want to give a real-time testimony to this whole system, because at least once a year I get caught in the middle between a DME who blames the carrier or blames the physician, and it's round and round. And since Modus put this program in, I call them, they take care of the back and forth calls and call me back when it's resolved, instead of me making, and I'm not exaggerating, from 6 to 20 calls trying to straighten it out. This is a huge service.
Thank you, Jeff. And my team has been out meeting with entities right now, just talking about the plan changes for the upcoming year. And we've been getting really good feedback from the entities about the Navigator team as well. They've been hearing from their members and communicating that to my team as we go and meet with them. So we have been receiving quite a bit of good feedback about the Navigator team. So really excited about that. All right, and that is what I have for the surveys. As we report on the CAPS, we'll be back to share the results with those. And then also as we implement our member survey, satisfaction survey that we're developing, I'll also come back and share the results of that survey as well. But I did want to take a minute just to show some enhancements we're making to the member dashboard, because I think that this will have a good impact on the experience that members have using our plan. And starting with the new plan year, we're launching an enhanced member dashboard for our Moda 360 members, which OEBB is a Moda 360 group. So when members will still log into their member dashboard the same way that they do today. So the same username, same password, and they'll use the same links. But when they log in, it's going to direct them to an enhanced version of that member dashboard. This here is an example of what the mobile version will look like. There is also a desktop version that will look very similar to this, but just stretched out with a few more pictures because there's extra space, but all the content will be the same. And when members come in here, it looks prettier, but it has a lot of really great personalized features for members. First, it's going to show if a member has selected a PCP 360. If this member had not selected a PCP 360, there would be a little triangle here with a link taking them to where they can search for a PCP 360. It'll also notify them if any of their dependents have not selected a PCP 360 either. And then the personalization here, you'll see this tile here says care reminders powered by Moda 360. So if a member clicks here, it'll take them over here. And this is where they're going to see their reminders that I described earlier that the navigators can also see. So this member here has 3 different reminders. The first one here is antidepressant medication. So the member can click on this and it's going to give them a little description of what that care reminder is. And so this one's saying that, the member had been prescribed new antidepressant medication, but hasn't followed up with their doctor as is suggested. And so the member, if they want some more information about that care reminder or some help on how to close it, they can just call the health navigator here, or they can click here and chat with the health navigator. Some members may not want to see that care reminder, so they can just hit snooze, and this is what they'll see. And so next time they log into their member dashboard, they will no longer see that care reminder. Another personalized feature in the dashboard are the programs, the personalized programs. So from this Moda 360 page, the member can click here on Moda 360 programs. And here we're going to be showing them 3 programs that we think would be a good fit for them in helping them manage their care. So for example, this member is a diabetic and we've invited them into the Livongo program, but they have not yet enrolled. So Livongo is going to show up here. This could also show, for example, if a member has had ED utilization, then CirrusMD might show up here, which is our text-first virtual care that members can chat with the doctor through their phone. And it will be using all of the information that we know about a member, including social determinants of health information that we have about this member to personalize those programs. And the reason we're doing this is because, Moda and OEBB together, we offer a ton of different programs for members. And I think sometimes that can be really overwhelming and members don't really know which program might be best for them. They're getting all of this different information about these programs. So here we're giving them just 3, and it's the 3 that we think would be the best for that member. So if the member clicked here in Livongo, here it's going to take them to this site that's going to give them a description about the program. If they clicked learn more, it's going to take them to this Livongo site where they can enroll in the program. And then of course, if members have questions, they can call the health navigator or click the chat feature right here and talk to the health navigator through chat. And there's always a way to opt out. So if the member just does not want to enroll in Livongo, totally up to them. They can just click, I'm not interested in this program, and then they won't see it again. All right, and that's what I have. Any questions? Great.
I do not see any other questions, Erica.
Great. Well, thank you guys very much.
Oh, Bob. I do see a question from Bob.
It's not a question, it's just going to be a comment. And it's going to be very similar to Jeff's. On Christmas Day, I fractured my right hip. And I was in Central Oregon at the time and wound up in St. Charles Hospital with surgery and then all the aftercare that results from that. And what I would tell you is that within a couple days after being home from the hospital, I was contacted by Moda. And I don't know if it was the navigator or a social worker or whomever, but they contacted me with letting me know what all kind of different treatment options were going forward, and helped organize everything that happened from that point forward. All the bills were just closed out in the last couple weeks. The last discount that came on my bill was a result of Moda, I'm sure Moda causing it to happen, and it had no savings for Moda. It was all savings out of my pocket. So I just say I came away from that experience incredibly pleased. And I know the question was asked earlier on about are members pleased if they're using their benefit or not. And I would have told you, because I don't use my benefit very often, that I really didn't know. until this last experience. But I just want to say thank you. You guys did a great job.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. I'll let our team know that.
Okay, I don't see anyone else, so thank you, Erica. We'll talk to you in a few minutes. For Kaiser, we have Lindsay and Safari.
Hi, great. Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. And Rose, I'm ready to take over if you need me to, so I have my presentation up just in case. So to kick us off, I just want to say thank you so much for having us today. I believe most of you know me. However, I'm Sapari Sturdivant, an executive account manager at Kaiser Permanente, and I work on both the OEB and PEB accounts. And I know we have limited time with you, so our focus today will be to address at a very high level the many ways we seek and receive feedback from our members. This feedback is extremely valuable to us as it helps us to improve not only our service, but the care experience that we provide. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our presenter for today, Lindsay Legorgan, our Vice President of Consumer Experience. In addition to heading our consumer experience across our healthcare system, she also has operational oversight of our telehealth resource center and care excellence team. She has accountability for understanding our member experience through both quantitative and qualitative data, and also designing strategy to improve our care and service. And lastly, but not at least, and executing changes that are meaningful to our members. So with that, Lindsay, do you want to take over?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for having me. Can we go ahead to the next slide? So as was just shared, we're looking at quantitative data to help guide our efforts as well as qualitative, and we'll cover both of those aspects in the next few minutes here that we have with you. So we really look at the member experience from 3 guiding principles: respect me, know me, and guide me. And this forms the frame that we use as we look at care experience. So just at a very high level, when we look at member experience, I wanted to share some data. So the numbers at the bottom represent our medical office surveys and the percentage of members that rated their experience as good or very good. So as you can see, with in-person visits, 96% of members rated that experience good or very good. Video visits slightly lower at 93%, and then phone satisfaction at 94%. So overall, we are hearing good feedback from our members, and that helps continue to reinforce respect me, know me, and guide me. You can go ahead to the next slide. Can we go? Oh, there, perfect. All right, we wanted to really talk about all of the different ways in which we gather the member voice. From the left, really looking at a broad focus, we use what we call our brand tracker, and that helps us understand our reputation for members and non-members alike, and what we could do differently to improve that reputation and our brand accordingly. We then look at CAHPS, which is a survey all healthcare uses that gives us comparable data of where we should be in their overall experience. So CAHPS is the Consumer Assessment of Healthcare Providers and Systems. We also look at the CAHPS data of the other Kaiser regions, so we can leverage the enterprise overall to see, is there a region that's doing better than we are? If yes, what are they doing and what best practices can we adopt? We survey our new members to really understand what was that experience, that first year experience. We also want to understand the first 3-year experience, because we know coming into a new healthcare system, it can be tricky. It can be hard to navigate, and we want to make sure that we have systems and personnel in place to help that first year and first 3 years. As mentioned earlier, we do include our medical office and dental office visits. So we review that information. It comes in within 24 hours after the visit to a couple of weeks, depending on when the member returns it. So it allows us to really understand how we're doing and what we could do differently. And to get even more tactical, we use real-time feedback. So following every visit, A QR code is given, and then the healthcare team encourages the member, let us know how we did. It's a 2-question survey, rate us 1 to 5, and give us a comment on what we did well, what we could have done better. And that's really been helping to drive much faster improvement and meaningful improvement for the members. The other piece I would share here is that we do have an in-house market research team, which allows us to intake this information and look across what other healthcare industries are doing. We then take that information in and figure out what actions we're going to take within our care delivery systems to drive improvement. I already mentioned the enterprise piece, but just as we have our in-house team for the research, the enterprise also has a team, and we collaborate, again, to use our scale to drive for better improvement. The other piece in this space that we're really working on are twofold. It's member journey mapping. So understanding, for example, I have a 7-month-old, and really understanding that journey in maternal care. Cancer care is another area, mental health journey. These are pieces we're really looking across the entire member experience to understand what are those pain points and where could we improve. We're also building predictive modeling. So we're starting to look at different member demographics, clinical conditions to understand where we can get in front of care. Meaning, if we know that a condition is getting worse and worse, we can get in front of that before a breaking point occurs and hospitalization needs to happen. So we're really trying to use that data to drive for greater preventative care as well. Go ahead to the next slide. And the next slide, we're going to talk about how we gather member voice directly from members. One of the beautiful parts of having an integrated care delivery and insurance system is that our goals for Kaiser Permanente are aligned with our member goals. We want the safest care, the best care, aligned with the members' goals. We're not looking to provide additional testing or referrals that you may find in a fee-for-service shop. We're really trying to look at holistic care for that member. In that spirit, we have several options to gather that patient voice. Along the left side, you're going to see our standing patient advisory councils. Our Black Health Patient Advisory Council was stood up over the last few months, and that group is helping to inform our Black Centers of Excellence that we are building. This is one large step towards improving equity in care. We also have established a neonatal ICU. An example of what we just learned there is how can we better provide for the families of members that are in the NICU, and we're looking at different options to do that. And that's a gap we wouldn't have known without hearing from those members. Gender pathways, mental health, dental, the list goes on. In addition to these more formal councils, we have a list of members that we will bring into co-design sessions, member journey mapping, listening sessions, really trying to understand that full perspective so that we can make sure our systems are meeting those members' needs. Go ahead to the next slide. Wow, I'm waiting for, oh, perfect, there it goes. So I also wanted to take a minute to talk about what are we focusing on in care and getting really specific. First and foremost, we need to improve our access. And there's a lot of different ways we're doing that. We're building smarter tools, e-visits, real-time chat with a physician or chat with an RN, real-time Get Care Now, where you can get to an urgent care virtually within minutes rather than needing to come into an urgent care setting. But we know that's not enough. We can't just leverage the virtual arm. So we are really focusing on expanding our care delivery team so that that face-to-face care can be provided in the right setting when the member wants it and when they need it. And we're really focusing on increasing the number of members that are paneled and their ability to get with that PCP for visits. We know that that relationship's important. It helps with continuity of care, it helps with the member experience, and it provides better care. So that is a big focus area for us as well. Under coordination of care, we're really trying to focus on how do our different departments and teams work together to create a truly cohesive care plan that's fully integrated. That's an ongoing focus of ours. Included in that this year is a large focus on medication reconciliation, making sure that every arm of the system knows what the other arm is doing so that we can provide that best care. For mental health, we're doing several things in the access space, from including a Ginger IO option, which is a virtual mental health option. We're also increasing our internal capacity for group therapy and for one-on-one therapy, as well as enhancing our external networks. We know that this is a growing need, and we're positioning ourselves to continue to provide that. And then finally, we're really zeroing in on that new member experience. We have a lot of systems in place to support the new members, and what we want to make sure is that all those pieces are interacting together and helping that member really navigate and come into our system in the best way. So those are the big four this year. And let me pause there. What questions do you have? What additional information can I provide?
Sorry, my dog is barking, so I'm going to have to stay muted. Anybody have any questions right now?
All right. Well, that is all we've got, so I'll turn it back over to you.
You're muted, Robert.
Yeah, the dog working at home. Thank you both for such an informative. Thank you, dog. Such an informative summary. Let's move on then. I think, what do we have next? We have Moda's going to present something on national rental and travel networks.
Great. Thank you very much. And hello again. I am back to talk about a change that we will be implementing 10/1 this upcoming plan year for MODA and for our members who access our rental or travel networks today. So next slide, Rose. Great. So MODA has entered into a new partnership with Aetna Signature Administrators to offer access to a new national network, and that is Aetna's PPO network, and that'll be effective 10/1/22 for OEB. The Aetna Signature Administrators PPO network provides robust access to a full complement of providers nationwide. And the Aetna Signature Administrators PPO network includes more than 1.5 million participating physicians and ancillary providers, including over 6,000 hospitals. So those numbers, they sound like a lot, but hard to understand what that truly means until you put it into perspective of what that's going to look like for OEB members. So next slide, and we'll go into more details about what this really means for OEB. So who's going to use the new travel rental network? So all members who live outside of the service area will utilize this new national network. So that includes the subscribers who live outside of the service area, as well as out-of-area dependents. So these are typically college students or dependents under the age of 26 who have moved outside of the service area. And out-of-area dependents who live outside of the service area will still be able to participate in coordinated care the same way that they do today. And they will just select a PCP 360 and then utilize that provider while they are in the service area. And then in addition to the members who live outside of the service area, all members who travel outside of the service area will also use this network. So for example, if you take a trip to California and you have an urgent need that you need to go see a provider, then you would use the Aetna network for that service as well. So members who live in the service area today, which is Oregon, Southwest Washington, and Idaho, Connexus will still continue to be their primary network. And then everybody else will use the Aetna network with two exceptions. One exception is that members who live in Idaho will continue to use both the Connexus and the PHCS network. So members who live in Idaho today, they use our Connexus network because it goes into Idaho, but we have stacked it with PHCS just because in some of the more rural parts of Idaho, we do not have a full Connexus network there. So all members in Idaho can use both networks. And they will continue to use that today. And so members in Idaho who travel to different states will use the PHCS network as their travel network. So that's different than the other members. And then members who live in Alaska will also continue to use PHCS. That's the network that they use today if they live in Alaska, and that's the network that they'll continue to use. So no changes to members who live in Idaho or Alaska today. And any questions first about who this applies to? Because that was a lot of information. Okay, great. And so now let's talk about the numbers of how many people this applies to. So today there are 234 subscribers who live outside of the service area, and that's a total of 354 members that are attached to those subscribers. And then we have just under 1,600 out-of-area dependents. So those are those dependents who live outside of the service area. Yes, question, Tom?
Yeah, just you're announcing this new travel network. It means that you're moving away from a previous one. So
Yeah.
I assume you're going to get to disruption and things like that.
Yep. Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thanks. Thank you.
Next slide, Rose. Okay, and Tom, before we go into the disruption, I kind of go into how members find the providers. And so members will find in-network providers the same way they do today. So members who live outside of our service area, they go to Find Care the same way that members who live in the service area do. So they click on Find Care, which is always on the left-hand side of all of our MODA websites. And then next slide, Rose. And Rose, I'm assuming we're just waiting. Oh, there it is. Perfect. And then after members click on Find Care, they come to this drop down. It says Search by Network. Members who live in our service area, they click Connexus. Members who now live outside of the service area, instead of selecting the PHCS network that they select today, they will instead select the Aetna Signature Administrators PPO network from the drop down tab. And then that'll take them to that site where they'll search for in-network providers. So the same process that they use today. When members are logged into their member dashboard, the member dashboard already knows which network they're on. So when they search for providers in there, it brings up their network today. Okay, so next slide, Rose. Right, so disruption. Now we're to your question, Tom. And you know what I can say about the new network is that it is a lot more robust than the current network that we have, PHCS. So members are gaining access to a lot more providers than they have access to today. So of the members, there are 111 members who will be impacted by a provider they are seeing today, who will no longer be in network. Now, this 111 members includes all the subscribers who live outside of the network, all of the out-of-area dependents who live out of the network, and anybody who traveled outside of the network and used a provider. So this is the complete disruption. And the majority of those providers are ancillary providers and will actually be covered under the Federal No Surprises Act. So they'll receive the in-network benefit and cannot be balance billed for those services. So in looking, when we dug through the disruption, we have identified that there are 7 members who will experience a disruption in services around behavioral health or counseling. And so we are going to be seeking single case agreements with those providers to ensure that there's no disruption to the member. So 7 members was where we really identified the disruption for members who are seeing a provider today, who they will no longer have access to. And then looking at it, there are almost 4,600 members who will have a positive impact. And that providers that they are seeing today who are currently out of network will now be in network. And this also includes everybody. So that includes subscribers who live outside of the network, the out-of-area dependents, as well as the members who have traveled outside of the service area. So a lot more positive disruption than the negative disruption, a lot more access to providers for our members. Any questions about the disruption?
Yeah, and Bill, these 111 that you see, are they predominantly in one area? And if so, where is that?
You know, I didn't, can you go back to that slide, Rose? Sorry. I didn't look to see if they were predominantly in one area, but I definitely can, Bill. Like I said, the majority of those providers were ancillary providers, but I can go and see if there was any specific area that those members lived in. All right, any other questions about the disruption? Great. All right, sorry, Rose, next slide again. Great, member management. Members who live outside of the service area and are utilizing the new national network, their utilization management is going to be managed by American Health Holding, which is an Aetna company. And that means that Aetna will be providing those services such as prior authorization, case management, and utilization management functions. In comparing the requirements, they are very similar to MODA's, not completely identical, but very similar. But all of those requests will go through that company and will not come in through MODA. MODA will retain oversight of the service experience for the members, and we will be receiving a data transfer to ensure our MODA 360 team has the whole view of the member. So we can see the utilizations or the PAs and everything else that's going on with the member, so that our health navigators can assist members with questions and situations as they come up. And members who are using the national network will continue to have access to our point solutions. So members can continue to use SiriusMD and any of the other digital point solutions that we have available to members, such as Livongo. Great. Next slide.
Sorry, Bill,
Rose.
again, one more question.
Yes. Yep.
So in the future, as you're reporting on this, will these particular group of people going through Aetna, will they be able to be disaggregated out of your financials to see how it compares to your standard MODA member?
Yeah. Yeah, we will be able, we can identify who those members are and can report differently on them, I believe. Is that what you're
in front of JJ? Yeah, exactly what I was thinking. And I just realized I cut in front of JJ. Sorry, JJ.
Oh, JJ?
Just a quick thing. It's not really a question, more of a comment. I know the hiring market right now is, in a word, a nightmare. And especially within the community colleges, they're expanding their reach nationally to get teachers who will work telework. And this will allow those members to better recruit because they'll have good access to healthcare. So I really appreciate this work.
Great. Thanks, JJ. Yeah, we're very excited to be able to offer a more robust network to our members who live outside of the service area. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Erica. All right, we are at the update portion of our meeting. So first up is CL, which should be Tom.
Howdy. Rose is going to try to pull up some of our information that we dealt with today. CL addressed two major issues. The first was the annual dental performance report. And I'm seeing if we can get our executive summary so that you can see. This was presented by Willis Towers Watson, and if you remember, dental utilization fell off a cliff in March, April 2020, and what we've been watching is a gradual return in services and utilization. If you looked at costs for the last plan year, it increased 10% over the previous year. However, the previous year, October 19 through September 20, it dropped 15%. So we are not yet back to the utilization and the costs that we saw in 2019. The reasons for that are several. First, the dental offices have seen a degradation in their efficiency because of the effort that they've had to put in regards to protecting themselves, their staff, and their patients from COVID. There also has been, with each of the surges that we saw, there was a absence of both patients and absence of staff because they were got COVID and had to be isolating and out for a while. And then the other part has been a decrease in, we think that there's been an overall decrease in demand. And that's probably several different reasons. One of them was highlighted was because of COVID, people hadn't seen the dentist. Now they're worried that when they go see the dentist, some bad stuff is going to be found. So there's multiple levels of things that have resulted in that decreased cost and utilization. And we'll just have to watch and see what happens over time. The graphs that Rose has up now shows some of that under use of services. It compares prior and current. That shows the rebound. But if you looked at what it was again in 2019, those numbers are below where we are now. So that is what we saw. We went into a lot of detail, but the bottom line is we've had a rebound. It still is below what we saw in 2019. How long it's going to be that way is up in the air. One of the major problems that the dental industry is facing is workforce issues, and that is both in number of dental hygienists and dental assistants. It was very interesting to hear from both the two organized systems of care, Kaiser Permanente and Willamette Dental Group, how they are actively supporting locally the education and training of dental assistants, sponsoring tuition and the like. And I thought that was something that we should be highlighting. I would like to advance the slide one more time, Rose. We then had each individual, another one, I'm sorry. And let's see if there's anything. These were the plan changes that we saw in 21-22. Kaiser reduced their the co-payments for preventive dental office visit to 0, and that's continuing in the upcoming plan year. Kaiser Permanente had problems with low prevention use, and that is rebounding, getting better. You see the Delta Dental has added a additional, it's an exclusive PPO network that people have enhanced benefits when they follow that. And Willamette Dental waived co-pays for prevention visits from members who never been seen before in their system. So, and all of those continued. And if you remember, we supported the Delta Dental's Prevention First program for the upcoming plan year, that allowed for the cost of people's prevention visits, cleaning and the like, sealants, fluoride varnish, would not be applied up against their yearly maximum. Okay, next slide. So that was the presentation from Willis Towers Watson. We then had each of the plans talk about their particular activities. The part that I found most interesting was some graphs that Rose is trying to get up now. This was from Delta Dental, and they were able to start looking at services by race and ethnicity. Not surprising, the data shows that for both BIPOC versus white populations, use rates, utilization was lower. And the same thing when we looked at Hispanic versus non-Hispanic, with Hispanic people identifying themselves as Hispanic had lower use rates. We also looked at it from a geographic perspective. So if the lowest utilization were people who were, quote, out of state. Central and Eastern Oregon were had utilization rates 10% lower than urban and people who were identified as Western Oregon. So we have data now that shows us that there's disparities based on geography, based on race and ethnicity. The bad news is we have that. The good news is actually we're starting to understand it, learn about it, and before you can address an issue, you have to understand it. And I think we're moving in that direction at this point. So that was very helpful. We're going to see how much more information we can get from our dental plans, and then start addressing the issue: how do we improve that and kind of work our way through that. So that was the update on dental. Any comments from my colleagues on CIAL? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next topic, which was the ACT, or additional cost tier. This is a very complex issue, and for our new board members trying to understand it, Rose, yeah, okay, that's great. So this involved only MODA. It was a plan that was developed before we had a lot of the innovations that have tried to assist members making the correct choices, the best choices for care. It was before we had coordinated care models. It was when essentially MODA was offering PPO. Kaiser Permanente, because of its clinical structure, was not included in what the ACT represented. What the idea was, we would take procedures that were viewed as preference sensitive. In other words, either the patient or the doctor or both thought it would be a good idea to have these procedures when other alternatives were present. If you look at the list on the left where it says utilization trend, has advanced imaging, CT scans. The next one is MRI, hip replacement, knee arthroscopy, knee replacement, shoulder arthroscopy, sleep studies, spine surgery injection, spine surgery, and then upper endoscopy. The thought was that some of these procedures were overused And for an example, someone has knee pain, they would immediately go on to have some type of, let's say, arthroscopy, when indeed the best choice would have been maybe starting with physical therapy or something like that. So the again, this was in 2010, 2011, and what we learned was the utilization for many of these situations dropped the first year, and for many of them they maintained a slightly below MOTA book of business utilization up to the future. The concern that CIAO had was, were there unintended consequences of this? There was a question of, is there disparities, health equity issues that that have developed as we've come up with probably better and more selective ways of dealing with utilization. Rose, if you can move to that slide 29, that would be one that I would like to spend a little time talking about. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so just to understand the impact of what these, what the additional cost here, it essentially increased the copay. So for what you see was in the first year of implementation, $3.4 million was added to the out-of-pocket expense for members because of these. It gradually dropped down and to, I think, the low point in the 2017-18 plan year. It's now around 1.5 million. Interestingly, if you add up the cost, the copays for just MRI and CT, it represents over 50% of the utilization. I'm sorry, 50% of the additional copays that are developed. And again, we're not sure whether or not that additional expense is going against people who actually do have a choice, you know, or there's this preference sensitivity around, oh, my knee's hurting, I need to have an MRI, versus, you know, I've just been involved in a car accident and, or I just have sudden severe abdominal pain and I'm in the emergency room and I'm getting a CT scan. You know, in the first situation, yes, there's some preference sensitivity. And the other one, you don't have any choice. You're just being wheeled from one diagnostic situation to the other while people trying to figure out what's going on with you and trying to keep you alive. So that is that's our concern about the additional cost here. And we're going to spend, CIAO is going to take this on and spend more time to understand it. If we got rid of the additional cost here, it would have an impact, a rate impact of around 0.2%. So at least this last year, we would have been able to have worked it in without any trouble. The question would be, would we see a spike in utilization for these situations? And you know, that's you can have an opinion, but you only know what's going to happen after you've done it and, you know, see what happens over time. So it was a complex issue. It's been around now for a little over 10 years. It was implemented during a time of desperately trying to figure out how to get a handle on inappropriate utilization before the time of coordinated care and all the support that MOTA has developed to their medical plans. So whether or not it has moved beyond its purpose and whether or not it should be changed, modified, or eliminated, this is going to be one of the issues that CI will take on for next year. Again, any of my colleagues on CI would like to add anything to my, or correct anything I just said.
I think you did it very well, Tom.
Okay. All right. So that's the CIO conversation, and we had our first public comment. The board will hear about that next year, next plan year.
Thank you, Tom. We are now at the Innovation Work Group update. Jeff?
Great, thank you. Ollie is going to tag team with me on this. I'm going to start off talking about the Center of Excellence program developments, which we've been very active. We're starting to gain some traction. First thing is we've onboarded the Mercer team, facilitated a couple meetings with MODA. And while I was on vacation, my understanding is last week they met with the Providence people, and we have something scheduled, a discussion with Kaiser next Friday. So it seems like it's been a long time gaining some traction, but now we're starting to have some meaningful discussions. It's, when you're talking about standards of care, it's complicated, I guess the way to say it. So not only have we been discussing that in our meetings, but also we've had a number of offline meetings that Ollie has been attending with me as well. The intention and our goal is to be able to provide some meaningful information when we reconvene in the fall so that the board can see the substance of what we're proposing and agree or charge the group to move forward. So we have a plan to implement the following October 1. Second thing is we continue to be working on behavioral health network adequacy, and wrapping our arms around that is also challenging in terms of the labor shortage and reimbursement rates and the lack of definition. It's very hard in mental health to actually claim that you've reached healing because it's pretty subjective. So we're slowly and surely working towards that. There's also some involvement trying to get some standards of network adequacy so that we have enough clinicians to address the population that we have. There really seems to be a shortage of standards out there for us to benchmark against. There's also some areas where DCBS is developing some rulemaking, and I might defer to Ollie on what that really means, and also reporting requirements for House Bill 3046. The third subject that we spent time on at the last meeting was on value-based payments. We had 3 different presentations, one from APAC on reporting, another one on payment status. Mercer provided us that report. And thirdly, on updates on what percentage is paid through that. Let me shift this over to Ollie, and he can fill in some more details on that subject.
Actually, I'd defer to JJ first if you have anything to add, JJ.
I was kind of in and out. I got pulled out of that meeting because my bosses were calling to me. So that part of the meeting I was only partially there for. So yeah. I don't have a whole lot to say on that one.
Okay. No, I really don't either. I just wanted to say the DCBS rulemaking has not quite been finalized yet, so nothing really to announce publicly. Beyond that, really nothing else to add. I think you covered it, Jeff.
Okay, well, thank you. Say, anybody on the board have some questions? Okay, we're at the end of the meeting, so get her done, right?
Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, the Innovation Work Group, for the work that you do. All right, so other business and public comment. I have a question for Ali. So what are the odds we're going to be in person starting next September or August, whichever?
Yeah, I just had an update earlier. Well, I guess it was last week, but the software is still being procured. We got kind of a description of it. It sounds pretty slick that you know, the technology for hybrid meetings will basically zoom in on people that are actually speaking, and so you don't just see kind of a big room of people and whatnot. And it also reduces the static and feedback of, so if you have people remoting in and then people in a room, the people in the room won't get that that echoing noise that we're all familiar with. So unfortunately, with the state, procurement takes a while. It just does. There's no way around it. So I'd say the odds are 50-50 at this point, and we'll just keep waiting for that software to get procured.
Anything from anybody else before I ask for public comments?
I will say, if the board has a great advocacy for meeting in person, we have some logistical requirements for allowing public interaction. It doesn't have to be via Zoom. We can go older technology than that and rely on giving the public phone access. I mean, it's not ideal, but that is something that we can do if the board is interested, if it takes longer than expected to through the software.
You mean like we used to do?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the laws have changed. January of 2022, I think, is when a new law took place. So it's not exactly the same as it used to be as far as the requirements, but I think we would be in compliance with those laws. The requirement is that we give public the ability to interact, but it doesn't have to be via video. It could be via telephonic. As long as we're giving the public access to a meeting and the ability to interact within the meeting, we comply with the law.
Yeah, I would say if we don't have the solution procured through our agency, through the state, you know, by August, then, you know, we'll bring back some options in the short term. But, you know, once you have something down and processed, even though it didn't go very smoothly today, you know, it's difficult to up and change everything and then change it back, you know, a month or two later when we do have the software. So.
Yeah, but Ali, I have this gavel that was given to me like 2 years ago, and I've never been able to use it. So we have priorities here.
Yeah.
All right, Rose, do we have any public comment?
No, you don't have any public comment.
Well, okay then. We are 32 minutes ahead of schedule, so enjoy your time. And Ali, is our next meeting in August or September? I already forget.
The first Tuesday in September.
September. Have a great summer, everyone, and we'll see you in September. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.